Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Engagement Designer demo series. In the last episode, we talked about the Workflows tab as part of the Administration Console. In this episode, we're going to talk about the Workflow Drafts tab. The difference being the Workflows tab showed all of the current deployed workflows on this Avaya Breeze cluster that could be executed. The Workflow Drafts tab shows all of the saved workflows within the Avaya Breeze cluster that may or may not be deployed or executable. Within this tab, we see much is the same as the Workflows tab. Like off to the right, we have the ability to search based on keyword. Right now I'm searching based on my username as to hide the other developers within this environment. We can also refresh the page, which will then refresh the listing of all of the workflow drafts on this page. We can show and hide columns by clicking this dropdown and checking and unchecking these checkboxes here. We can do multiple sort, which will open a new window within the Administration Console to allow us to sort by column in order of descending or ascending. Another way to sort is by clicking on any one of the titles within this tab. Any one of the title columns here, I should say. Right now I'm currently sorting by last modified time descending. This shows the most recent developed workflow and workflow draft. Off to the left here, we have Create Workflow Draft, which is a button that will open a new browser tab of the Engagement Designer and the Engagement Designer Development Tool. Delete Workflow Draft will delete whatever selected workflow I have based on these checkboxes. So currently I have Simple Workflow checked. If I were to click Delete Workflow Draft, this would actually delete this draft of the workflow here. Off to the right, we also have the 4 Actions buttons. We have Edit Simple Workflow, which will then edit this exact draft here. I can also click Open New Copy of this workflow draft, which will open a new copy of this draft workflow here. I also have Deploy Simple Workflow, which will then deploy this exact draft here onto the Avaya Breeze cluster and allow that workflow to be executable. Lastly, I have Delete Simple Workflow, which will delete this exact draft called Simple Workflow from the Avaya Breeze cluster, much like the Delete Workflow Draft button up here. As you can see, the icons are the same. So as an example from this page, I'm going to open this Simple Workflow Draft by clicking on Edit Simple Workflow Draft in Designer. This will open a new browser tab and the Engagement Designer tool, which will allow me to edit that exact workflow draft, which I called Simple Workflow. Give it a second to load here. And we can see that by clicking that button, it opened that exact draft within my Avaya Breeze cluster, and it opened it within the Engagement Designer tool, my workflow draft called Simple Workflow. Back on the Administration Consoles tab, we have listed all here. We have listed the workflow draft names, the exact file path within the cluster system file path, the created time of that workflow, the last modified time of that workflow, as well as who it was last modified by. These right here are very helpful when working within a team, when you may or may not have multiple developers within a workflow draft itself. In the next episode, we're going to go over the next tab within Administration Console, which is the Instances tab.